When nations and communities are faced with adversity, from raging storms to civil wars, surviving them takes resilience. But can we learn to be resilient regardless of the challenge? A new public-private partnership believes the answer is yes. The Rockefeller Foundation's Global Resilience Partnership is trying to help communities across Africa and Asia build their resilience to challenges like extreme poverty and climate change. Now, one way they hope to start the process is with a competition called the Global Resilience Challenge. Sundaa Bridgett-Jones is the Rockefeller Foundation's Associate Director of International Development. She joins us now via satellite from New York City to tell us more about the competition, and that is helping the world's most vulnerable communities become stronger and more resilient. Sundaa, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, May. So pleased to be here.
Well, let's start off with a broad question, Sundaa. The Rockefeller Foundation, of course, is involved in so many different projects around the world, really trying to help cure the ails of the world, let's put it that way. But with the world being so chaotic these days and so many problems, is it sometimes overwhelming to decide what causes that you're going to try to help at the Rockefeller Foundation?
Well, you know, thanks for that, May. I think we at the Rockefeller Foundation see a world that's defined by disruptions, disturbances to normal life, and you've mentioned many of them. And it's in a way caused by three different threats, if you will. There is the threat of climate change that, of course, is an undeniable contributor to the severity of some of the issues that we have. There is, of course, urbanization, where we see a huge population growth, particularly in cities, and causing a good deal of pressure for cities around the world. And there is globalization that's actually accelerated the pace of the volatility in many communities. And we see those three really as being some of the drivers of some of the challenges that we have.
And Sundaa, let's get right to talking about the competition that I mentioned in the introduction, the Global Resilience Challenge. Tell us a little bit about why you started this challenge.
The Global Resilience Challenge is indeed unique, but it's a model that we've been using for some time that helps to uncover and test some of the most really compelling solutions for resilience building around the world. The Global Resilience Challenge was modeled after a competition, a design competition that we supported in the New York, New Jersey area after Superstorm Sandy. It's called Rebuild by Design. And the challenge is really one of the first activities of the Global Resilience Partnership. We launched the partnership in August 2014 at the first U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C., where the Foundation and U.S. Agency for International Development and the Swedish International Development Agency joined forces to really find a platform for supporting these kinds of really promising, innovative solutions for resilience building around the world. And it was such a tremendous response to this global competition in the Sahel, which is West Africa, in East Africa, and South and Southeast Asia. We had over 500 applications for this competition, and it was really tremendous to try to get down to having 17 contestants and 8 winners, really going through a 3-stage process that focused on how they might be able to diagnose problems in their communities, how they can come together in interdisciplinary teams with a number of actors to be able to look at those problems in a different way, in a way that focuses on resilience thinking and concepts to help to drive them towards some really promising solutions for communities. So we're really quite pleased that we have a terrific set of 8 awardees.
And what I find fascinating, Sundaa, is the quality of the entrants. They're all pretty young, very smart, very well educated, but they all have the same mission in their lives, in their young lives, to try to do some good in the world. And that must be really inspiring to see.
That is indeed the case, May. I think we have a number of teams that have come to really focus on what are the most pressing problems in the communities in which they live. The teams actually represent meteorologists and engineers and scientists and community leaders coming together to try to help to solve some of these problems. And let me just give you maybe one or two examples of some of the work that the teams have proposed in terms of really fascinating solutions. One is the Foundation, and they've compiled a number of folks on their team to really focus on how to improve the resilience of coconut farmers in the Philippines. And that's obviously a top agriculture industry for the Philippines, except some of those coconut farmers are really some of the most vulnerable in their community. And so what the team has proposed is try to connect those farmers to markets. So offering financial services, mobile technology to provide them information that helps to understand the conditions under which the coconuts are growing, the coconut trees are growing. And all of this is really to increase productivity, reduce their vulnerability, and ensure that they have better livelihoods in their communities. And so that's really quite exciting. I think similarly, when we go to West Africa and Mali and Niger, we have another team in Mercy Corps has partnered with a group of organizations and businesses and government to really try to improve agropastoralists' access to financial markets there. So again, it's very much a focus on increasing their access to financial services with a real attention to women who have been, in some cases, marginalized, not having access because of cultural norms or other circumstances in their communities to some of these services. So we're really looking at teams that are focusing on really exciting innovations in their community, in these communities that are helping the communities adapt to some of the stresses and shocks that they might face.
And unlike a lot of competitions we hear about all over the world, not just, when it comes to social good, but sometimes the issue and the problem is that they win, but then there's no sustainability in the idea. There's no long-term lasting effect. I would imagine that that would be crucial in this kind of competition, to choose those projects that really are going to have a long-term effect.
Indeed, you hit the nail right on its head, and the long-term sustainability and impact is a huge criterion for selecting many of these solutions. And what was really fascinating about this challenge process, again, modeled off of Rebuild by Design in the New York, New Jersey area, was the time that they had 2 to 3 months to actually start to pilot some of their activities, their solution-oriented activities in various communities, to see whether the community would actually have an uptake of what they were proposing. And that was just kind of, an early indication that this could actually be much more impactful than one would originally believe. And that's certainly been the take that we've had moving forward with these teams. And let me also just say that this is not a challenge whereby teams come up with designs and solutions on their own. I mean, we're walking side by side with many of the teams, trying to reinforce the understanding of what resilience thinking and practice means in these communities, and also to help to connect them to the kinds of networks and resources that they will need to be successful in implementing the solutions.
Does this give you hope? When you see all this activity and the growing trend of this interest in trying to give back, trying to change the world for the better, and that you see this youth movement becoming more and more interested in this, or is this a phase? Is this just a trend that's going to go away, or do you think this is an ongoing, growing trend that we're going to keep seeing?
So May, I not only see hope, but I see hope that leads to action and people really wanting to take charge, come up with identifying what important local needs are really that they're facing in their communities, and trying to find the kinds of approaches and tools and solutions that help to address some of those needs and challenges. So this is really about acting on the notions of resilience concepts and thinking, and with resilience being really about building people's adaptive capacities to not only survive but to thrive in the face of some of these disruptions disruptions that we've been discussing. And so I see that this is something that's not going to be short-lived. This will be with us for some time, and we'll all be better for it.
I sure hope so, and I would have to agree with you. We would definitely be better for it. Sunday, in terms of the everyday person, you know, every person isn't brilliant like some of these, I'm sure, these competitors in the challenge. The everyday person has to put food on the table and go to work and, you know, kind of live their everyday life. But when it comes to giving back, when it comes to the idea of resilience and trying to help the community, what do people at the Rockefeller Foundation actually recommend just to the average schmo on the street?
You know, we've been talking about the circumstance in which we're all living here in the 21st century, where crisis is the new normal. And what we've found in our work around the world, here in the US, but also in many parts of Asia and Africa, is that the solutions really lie within individuals and their communities. So we believe that these great ideas, these activities that we all can do and help us to thrive in the face of some of the shocks and stresses, can be found with the very everyday person that you've been describing, May. We know people are resilient all around the world and have been coming up with innovations on a daily basis, innovations that are born by the activities of communities coming together, of networks coming together, of drawing on one another for support and for recovery efforts in many of these cases. And so this is not a situation whereby one looks outside of their community necessarily for the kinds of innovations that we're discussing. This is a case where we're looking within, that we're really finding solutions within communities.
All right, well, Sundaa Bridget-Jones, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the information and the insight.
Thank you, May.